Welcome everybody to the FPL WildCats live. Thank you for joining us, and thank you of course to the regular cast and our special guests for joining us today. But before we get into the video, please make sure to check out the links in the description and subscribe, because we are only 101 subscribers away from 1,000. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and I will pass it over to our hostess with the mostess, Nymphria.
Thanks, Jay, and welcome everyone to the show. Today we're joined by David Wardale, author of the ever-popular FPL book, Wasting Your Wildcard. How are you, David? Have you been enjoying
good,
your international break?
No, it's an international break. You don't enjoy it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So tell us a little of how you've been getting on in FPL in general, and how you got on in Gameweek 12, and if you have any plans for Gameweek 13.
In general, this season it's been okay. I'm 4 green arrows in a week, 4 weeks of green arrows now, so I'm up to 103,000, which isn't bad, but I keep screwing up really. I sold Aubameyang just before he went mental and scored 5 goals in 4 games or whatever it was.
Oh dear.
I just lost all hope in him, and then suddenly he did it. He did the business. Jimenez the same. He got his best score the game week that I sold him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's okay. I got 63 points last week, which wasn't bad.
So who are you selling next?
Nobody, I don't think, actually. I held my transfer over last week because I've only just played my wild card, which no doubt will be wasted. And yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to... I might do some transfers this week. I'm not sure yet. Maybe you can give me some hints and tips. I don't know.
Oh, brilliant. Good stuff. So I'll pass over to Kurt next. How did you get on, Kurt?
It's been all right. I've sort of, for the third game week in a row, just about got above average. 51 points, average is 48. It doesn't seem to be happening for me. And I captained Mane, so knowing how Salah did, and it's already mentioned once in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beginning to catch up with me, all this Salah stuff, but I'm going to stick true to my guns and stay away from him. Now, my team did pretty bang average, did the best that I could with it. I decided to take a big risk, and Wilson on Arnautovic are brought in, and of course they did nothing. Alexander-Arnold was a nice little surprise. I didn't really see him doing too much, and so I'll take that. Alonso on 8 as well. So, and Aguero as well, doing what he does best in scoring. It's just, I just can't really find words. It's bang average. My bench got 2 points all around, so I genuinely could not have improved my team in the slightest.
Have you not had Salah all season?
No, I started without him, and it's gone too far now. So
He's a Salah dodger.
I mean, there's the flip side to that, though. I mean, I've had him all season, and he costs so much money, as you well know. I keep thinking, oh, the riches, I could spend that elsewhere. Because he's he's performing well, but only well. He's not extraordinary like last season, is he? So is he worth it? Is he worth it anymore? I don't know. He's killing me.
Well, that's the argument. But then I suppose I don't have him, and I feel like he's also killing me in the same way. But the only way I'd see him in is getting rid of Hazard or Aguero, and they're both decent scorers.
Yeah, well,
granted, they're a little bit cheaper. So it's just the risk you take, or get rid of Mane and bring in a £4.5 million midfielder, 4.0 million defender. You just need to sacrifice a place in your team, and I can't see a place where I could sacrifice anyone at the moment. But yeah, Mane. 51 points. Mane is very, very lucky to still be in my team. He has let me down severely this week, and hopefully he can do it this next week. But I don't care anymore. I don't care about FPL. I'm going to become a maker.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
But no,
there might be a spot open.
another bang average week though. Just to sum it up, really, it was bang average. So I need to improve. Really need to improve, because I'm slowly dropping down the list, and it's not a pretty sight. All these red arrows.
I was going to save it for a bit later, but I was looking at FPL Connect's captaincy matrix article thing that he does, and he's got some underlying stats here, and Salah has got 39 penalty area touches, 19 total goal attempts, 13 goal attempts inside the box, 3 big chances, 3 goals and 2 assists, in comparison to Mane, if I can find the tweet, 22 penalty area touches, 8 total goal attempts, 5 goal attempts inside the box, 2 big chances, 2 goals and no assists in the last 5. So actually, based on that, Salah is doing better.
Yeah. I suppose the other thing is, it could be worse than having Mane. You could be having Firmino. I mean, he's basically playing as a DM.
Yeah.
So he's unbelievably deep.
Oh,
strike.
Don't get me started on Firmino.
Oh, well, this is a good time. Let's hand over to Brett. How did you do, Brett?
Yeah, I kind of got the same feeling as Kurt, really. It's just another bog standard week. I'm kind of waiting for that exceptional week to kind of jump me up the ranks now, which I've been waiting for a while. So 58 this week. So it's not terrible. And it gave me a small green arrow, which is a positive, because I've been waiting for one of those for like the last 5 weeks now. I was on a terrible run. So just okay, really, The positive, like Kurt said, was having Alexander-Arnold. Before this game week, he was kind of one of the ones on my list, like, should I get him out soon? But with that favourable fixture, I had to keep him for just that week in case he played, and he did, and ended up getting 11 points. So that was definitely a bonus. And now people are starting to bring him back in, and he's going back up in price, Alexander-Arnold. So now it's kind of like, oh, maybe there's one less headache there. Maybe I can keep him now. As a squad player, at the very least, if he does miss out once, he might play the next, And yeah, obviously with Salah, we had Salah as captain, so did the business. 8 points there, 16 points total. Fraser's still ticking along as well, which is nice with an assist. My keeper finally getting some points, Fabianski, 5 points with some saves without a clean sheet, which is always good. But yeah, just my strike force flopping incredibly this week. So Wilson, Arnautovic and Firmino, 2-2-2. All blanks for my strikers. I kind of knew, like with Firmino, he was already on my mind to, kind of get rid. But with Fulham at home next, I thought, well, I can't get rid of Firmino with Fulham at home. If he's ever going to get back to form, it's going to be in this game. And watching that one, he was passing with the defenders. He was on the halfway line. He was very close to an assist when Salah was through one-on-one. But even still, he's just, like Dave said, Firmino's just playing so deep. And it's a question of when I get rid of him rather than if now, I've had Firmino 2 times this season. So I had him at the start. I had him for home games against Brighton, against Southampton, I think it was, Cardiff, Fulham.
I think you've done your time now, Brett.
I have. I've owned Firmino for what was some very, very nice fixtures. And I kept faith with him. And I was patient, and yeah, it just hasn't worked out. And looking last season, I put a post out on Twitter about Firmino, and at the start of the season, I went for him because for the 3 seasons that he'd been at Liverpool, he was improving year on year. So 10 goals, 11 goals, 15 goals last season with 8 assists. So almost 200 points in FPL, and he was 8.5 million last year. So he was a gem, really. There was a few game weeks where he was just exceptionally good in front of Salah and Mane. And when they signed Fabinho and Keita, I thought, well, now he's got license to stay forward. They've got the midfielders now. They've got Fabinho to hold. They've got Keita as the box-to-box. So Firmino is going to stay up front now. Surely 9.5 million, he's going to be a gem, And yeah, how wrong was I? He's so deep.
Instead they stuck Sturridge in there.
Yeah, I was about to say he's probably scored more points.
Yeah, so Firmino will likely be my move this week. I'm probably going to downgrade to maybe Jimenez and then free up some money to maybe get Richarlison or someone like that as my 5th midfielder. So that's my considerations for this week. But 58 points for me, and hopefully more green arrows for game week 13.
Well, as I got the same amount of points, I'll go next.
Oh, nice.
I got a mixture of green and red arrows, but a green arrow where it matters the most in the OR, a little one. I'm at 71,730 at the minute, I think. I had Patricio, got 2 points. That's 3 weeks in a row now. If he didn't have such a great fixture coming up, I would be seriously considering selling on, to be honest. I had Alonso, who got the clean sheet and the bonus points. Mendy just sat in the 2. Of course, we all know he's had surgery on his knee now. But you guys will know I was considering shifting him on anyway, because he didn't exactly do brilliantly from returning the last time. Mm-hmm. So you'll know I was already going to get rid of him. The surgery just kind of made it much easier to some extent. I had Robertson, so he did the best out of all my defenders with 12 points. Not sure why I'm keeping Hughes. I guess he's a bit like your Firmino, Brett. It just he has great fixtures, and I think he has great underlying stats, and he seems to be there and thereabouts, but then never really does anything. So he just got me the 1 point. Richarlison 3 points, the same as Hazard, so they kind of bookended my team. Salah was my captain, who got me 1 more point than what Aguero would have done if I'd gone with him. Wilson doing Wilson things, as you all know, just 2 points.
You guys got Robertson.
Yeah.
Robertson?
I had Robertson. Yeah.
I love that one.
Mitrovic became Arnautovic for me last game week, who may as well have stayed Mitrovic, because they got exactly the same points, so that transfer was completely worthless. So Jay, how did you get on?
Well, I got 55 points, which saw red arrows all across the board for me, dropping me down to 20,546. To be honest, Alonso, I think for a lot of us, is being that Mr. Consistent. He's not really being the goal Alonso or assist Alonso that we all wanted, but compared to the rest of my defence, he's at least getting me points every week. So I'm happy with Alonso. When there was a point where I was thinking of transferring him out, Ryan, the clean sheets have kind of gone, but I'm one that doesn't really like to change my goalkeeper until I'm using a wild card or some sort of big play. I just don't like to touch goalkeeper because I think generally your transfers are used better elsewhere. I have Mendy. Ever since I moved away from Trippier, since Mendy came back, I've tried to go to Robertson due to a good fixture. Liverpool concede. Then go to Mendy due to a good fixture. City concede. So I've generally just picked the wrong person to play alongside Alonso in my defence. But midfield-wise, Salah was my captain. Yeah. Well, we'll get on to Wilson, because Wilson was doing very well for me until some people jumped on that bandwagon.
Until I brought him in.
Yeah. Sorry about
that. Salah was my captain, so at least I got the captain choice right. Pereira was a great experiment for 1 game week out of the 3 game weeks I brought him in for. He's done nothing since. Then we get on to the strikers. I went with Ings to be my player to take over from Maddison, and he did get an assist before being injured after 39 minutes. Aguero did score for me as well. And then you come to the Bournemouth players. I was seriously considering Fraser being someone to transfer out, because I was set my mind on keeping Wilson because of Wilson's form. And then, of course, what happened last game week, Fraser gets points and Wilson doesn't. So I'm literally looking at both of those going, I don't feel like I should have 2 Bournemouth players. But they keep, it's almost like they're alternating. I'm not 100% sure they have been, but they are both returning points for their price. They're returning points probably regularly enough that I should probably keep them despite the fixtures. But I just feel like it would be better used somewhere else, especially with the likes of Arnautovic with really good fixtures. If he is going to play through, is it a back injury or something? He's got something, a slight concern that he's playing through.
Permanently nearly injured, I think. Yeah. That's what he's...
And there's recently been talks, he's been very coy about questions about if his future's at West Ham as well. Yeah. But still, the fixtures look very good for a player that is a talisman for West Ham. And I think if West Ham do well, it's because Arnautovic is doing well. So I've had a few really good game weeks, so I can't really complain that I'm having some average ones now. But I just would like some better game weeks.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, we've we've had a couple of Twitter questions, so we'll start off with a big one here, because I think this has caused a lot of Twitter drama over the international break. Paul would like to know, are Everton really the answer, or is it all Twitter drama? And I think he's referring to the whole Mendy versus, I'm not entirely sure I'd say his name, Digne.
Digne.
I think it's
argument.
Digne. Like dinner.
Like dinner. Oh, I'll remember that. So, who would like to take that one?
Everyone's jumping at that.
No one's confident on that one.
I'll tell you why I haven't really been looking at him is because I think in my head there's a general consensus that a Marco Silva side isn't a good defensive side. So
consistent, that's for sure.
Yeah, so while I actually think he does provide good attacking threat, when I have the likes of Doherty around, who I know hasn't been returning recently but still has the underlying stats as well, and the fact that you have the issues of Mendy and so on, I just feel like players like Robertson for Mendy just seems a more natural swap and a safer choice than Digne. So I've not really looked at it at all, which is why I didn't jump at answering it. And when I look at Everton, I want to be looking at Richarlison, or if I'm looking for differentials, I'll be looking at potentially Bernard or someone like that. I don't really look for them for defence.
I think it's everybody was going, do we go with Laporte or do we go with Digne fella?
I can't give any argument not to go Laporte. I don't think there is an argument not to go for Laporte right now.
Yeah,
I can't think
he looks
of one.
nailed on this season, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Otamendi last season was just one of the few who was barely rotated at City. And Laporte's got that this season, I think. And of course, he can play left back as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, he'll get a lot of games this season, I think, Laporte. I think with Everton, they've got short-term potential for clean sheets, which they've only had 2 or 3, I think, this season.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got, Cardiff, Newcastle and Watford all at home, I think, over the next 4 game weeks.
That's correct, yeah.
So that looks lovely. But then you look at over 6, they've also got Liverpool, Man City and Spurs. So, it swings and roundabouts with Everton at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tempted by Sigurdsson, actually. I don't know what his
injury status,
ownership, and his ownership is at the moment. But he, for once, I think he's actually a differential.
For me, obviously I've seen a lot of this because it's a long international break for 2 weeks. So we're all on Twitter, we're all obsessed with FPL. So we're trying to find stuff to talk about. And then obviously because you're waiting so long between the game weeks, you see a lot of the same stuff. But the reason is everyone that's on Twitter in the FPL community all is obsessed with FPL, and we're all thinking about it all the time. So if there's a trend like Lucas Digne or Laporte coming up, it's because there's a lot of addicted FPL minds thinking about it a lot, and they are logical options. For so many people to be talking about them in this community, it means it's a logical option. I don't think it's about sheep following and doing what everyone else is doing. There's a lot of people thinking about this and coming up with and filtering through to certain players. So there is definitely scope to bring in Lucas Digne personally. Like Dave said, 3 home games in the next 4, and the difference between him and Laporte or him and Robertson is he's 4.8 million. So it's a lot cheaper, and at that price. Granted, he is away to Liverpool and Man City in the next 5 or 6 game weeks, but you can rotate him at 4.8 million. You can put him on the bench 1 game week, so you can,
He's only owned by 2% as well.
Exactly, and with Laporte. Now, I was a Laporte owner, and I regret getting rid of him far too early. I tried to be a bit too clever with it. The issue for me to get Laporte back now is that he's 6 million. And because he hasn't got that goal threat as much, it's it's a bit more of a strain to bring someone for 6 when he used to be 5.5. And it was a bit more like, once he hits that 6 mark, I see that number 6, and it kind of puts me off a little bit. But with Lucas Digne as well, he's over the last 4 game weeks, he's created the most chances of any defender with 11, 4 shots on 4 attempts at goal as well. So he does offer a lot, and I can see why lots of people are touting him as a potential option, and it's a logical switch. But like John said, if you want the reliable stress-free pick, then of course go Robertson, but it's 6.5 million, and Laporte 6 million. Granted, they're both better options, but for a cheap squad player during this very busy Christmas period, you've got Digne here for Everton, who I don't believe they're in the Europa League this year. Are they in the Europa League? I don't think they are. They've got no European fixtures, so less likely for rotation. During this Christmas period, there's so many games. there's games every 3 or 4 days. There's the Champions League as well. So Robertson, Laporte even. I know
but is he not going to rotate with Coleman a bit there over that festive?
Well, Coleman's the other side, isn't he? So he's the right back, I believe. But there is Leighton Baines. So people are saying, maybe Baines will come in. That's true. There's a chance for anyone to get rotated. But my point is there's maybe less because they're not in any European competition, So look, they're all viable options.
Everton's fixtures from Boxing Day onwards are brilliant, all the way through to February.
Yeah,
and this might be the time rather than now. Might be the time later to actually plunge into Everton. I don't know.
I don't know. I just for me, obviously, I'm Mendy owner, and I think it feels like too much of a risk. I know that sounds really stupid because it frees up cash and, especially owning big players like Salah and Aguero and Hazard, that extra little bit would be really, really helpful, because I am aware that where I have Richarlison and Hughes, other people have, Richarlison and Maddison, say, or whatnot in their midfield, and people with Martial now and Richarlison, both of them, and so to their Martial, I have Hughes. So that extra money would have been great, but I just couldn't see myself going without some sort of City defence. And in this particular moment, selling Patricio to buy Edison back, because I had Edison at the beginning of the season, just didn't feel right. It would have used both my transfers up, and I was worried about the Mendy price drop, so I went with Laporte just to have that City defensive cover. Now, that's not to say in the future I won't drop him right down, but for now it just felt like the kind of safer, pick just for now, just to see how things go. And then, as Jay says, we get another wild card in January, and I can think about maybe switching Edson. Okay, it's going to cost me much more by then, but
Yeah, I mean, look, it saves a headache. It is the stress-free option to go from Mendy to Laporte, especially because, looking at how good City are defensively this season, the 2 goals they've conceded recently have both been from penalties. They're not conceding from open play. So if you're an owner of one of the defenders and you get a clean sheet wipe out because of a penalty, you have to consider yourself a bit unlucky, really, especially... Yeah, especially as a Laporte owner, because it's the keeper that was at fault. So look, it's a very logical transfer. I can't blame anyone for bringing in Laporte, because he's played every game, and Man City are very solid defensively. So as a manager with no Man City defensive cover myself, I am a bit concerned about that.
Okay, so shall we chuck out questions to the chat, and you can direct them as you see fit?
Sure. So Ezo is in the chat, a very frequent watcher of the stream. So hey Ezo, he wants to know long term Richarlison or Anderson, Felipe Anderson. Jay, do you want to have a little stab at that one?
Don't ask me about Richarlison. I'm the one that said you don't need Richarlison because his underlying stats aren't good enough, and that it would all dry up. Well, it
might still. It
could still. I'm also the guy that said the same about Martial, and he's gone 4 game weeks with good returns. So obviously,
can you
there
say
is
the
an
same
argument.
about Aguero?
Yeah.
Or...
Which players do you need me to say? Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of Felipe Anderson, but I think you've literally had maybe a 2 game week spell where he has looked very good. Before that, there would have been an argument that it was either Arnautovic, or if you really were looking outside of Arnautovic, before he got injured, Yarmolenko. So I would need to see more from Felipe Anderson, and generally with what is happening at West Ham at the moment, and with how much I know Silva is a fan of Richarlison and has brought him with him from Watford and paid that much money for him and wants to retrain him into a forward, I feel like Richarlison seems the more logical choice. The argument against it would be fixtures. Fixture-wise, West Ham will have the better fixtures. moving forward. So
by a mile, yeah.
Yes, easily. Like I don't. If Felipe Anderson had this form for maybe 4 game weeks before this run, or even if there'd have been a few patches of form before this period, then I'd say straight away Felipe Anderson, because I will still say it now, there are games where I feel like Richarlison just doesn't seem to turn up, and he's still getting used to that forward role, which I think means in certain games, especially as the fixtures are tougher, he might struggle to lead the line against really good defences, because he's not used to being that forward, leading the line. Whereas I think Felipe Anderson is going to play a certain role for West Ham. He's been brought into, he's been working his way into this current form. So my heart would say Felipe Anderson. That's a bit to do with the fact that I follow West Ham. But everything that I've said bad about Richarlison now, I feel like, especially with his ownership Richarlison's is very high now. Yeah. I feel like Richarlison maybe is the safer bet, and then Felipe Anderson is the one you want to go with if you really want to take that risk and maybe boost your rankings during the Christmas period.
When did Anderson score his first goal? Was it about game week 6 or something, or a bit later than that? I'll look myself, actually. Because that's the one thing. He's had to get used to the Premier League, hasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he seems to have done that now. Give him a few weeks. Oh, it's game week 7.
Game week 7, yeah.
Yeah. They scored 4 times since then,
I remember touting him pre-season and waiting, just watching week after week and thinking, why did I say anything about this guy? He's going to be terrible all season.
After game week 7 as well, it was game week 11 when he turned up from game week 7. So I do think West Ham definitely look a lot better than they did at the start of this season. And I think a lot of that was just getting used to what was expected of them and a lot of new players. So if I had to bet, I'd say Felipe Anderson's going to continue to perform rather well. But I just feel like Richarlison just feels a bit safer.
It's funny, I think we've been a bit spoiled over the years by every season you get one player who completely blows their price out of the water, don't they? They just perform fantastically. I mean, Michu was a great example of that, wasn't he? But this season, we're expecting it of players like Anderson, 6.9, and we're expecting him to do great things. But he's only, 6.9. He's kind of your third midfielder, isn't he? Your third or fourth midfielder. He's not Hazard. He's not going to score every week. He's certainly not Hazard when I have him. He never bloody scored. But, I do wonder whether we set too many goals, if you pardon the pun, for players who are only going to be our third or fourth midfielders. I don't know.
Definitely expect a lot, don't we, from certain players? Yeah, that, like you say, that maybe it's their first season or because they're cheap or whatever, and yet just because they have a good patch, we suddenly think.
This season so far, we don't seem to have had one of those players who's really broken through yet, have we? Who's performed fantastically well, and people who get on them early have a great season, and people like me have a shit season because I don't get on them early.
That season when Mahrez won the league with Leicester, he was a player. I thought, it's Mahrez. They bought him for 100k or something. Yeah. He's not going to continue this kind of form. It's going to stop. And he was scoring every week, and it was okay, I'm going to have to get this guy in now. Yeah. And it's Capoue was similar.
Last season as well, wasn't it? Sterling. Oh, no, he was a lot more. But I had him actually, and I was lucky. But a lot of people say, no, he's Sterling. He won't carry on with this. But
you just don't trust him.
Well, we're all saying the same about Martial now, aren't we? And I'm starting to think, well, the only way I can fit him into my midfield is if I sell Richarlison. And so I've got that horrible blinking headache.
To me, Martial feels a lot like Lingard last year, where he had that really good run, and then I bring him in and he does nothing. So, but I think the point is we do need to try and find that one player. We've all mentioned Mahrez, Michu, probably my favourite FPL owned player I've ever owned. I loved Michu. Joshua King. I think those are the players that really, if you can get on them early enough, are the players that really affect your rank.
So far we haven't had one, have we? Not this season, I don't think.
If you always played Ryan Fraser, he's been very consistent.
Yeah,
but
true.
It's one of those where I don't think anyone's done it so consistently that it's clear that they're the choice that everyone should be going for.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna, as we just touched upon it, so I'll pass this one to Kurt down there. This one was just a general one on Twitter. It was FT and FPL wants to know, with everyone looking at Martial, is Pogba going under the radar?
To be honest, I have been looking at, because I've got Mendy in my team, transferring out. Martial and Pogba are the two that you look at. Martial, he's being played in the, I don't know too much about where his best position is, but Man United fans saying his natural position, and he's scored 6 goals in the last 5 games with 1 assist as well against Newcastle. Pogba is you just can't trust him. I mean, I am a big fan of Pogba. I think when he's on form, he's phenomenal, but he'll have some games where he can tear, the entire team apart, and he'll have some games where you just look at him and he's plays like a Chris Smalling, I suppose, just a Bambi on ice. He's all over the place, fouling, the passing, going yards here and yards there. It's Martial, I think, is a lot safer at the moment, but if Pogba can get his form locked down, you never know. But you just can't trust him. If he was consistent, I'd say yes, but he's far too inconsistent for my liking. Maybe I'm being a bit too critical, but you just never know what Pogba's going to turn up, and that he's been made the captain this season and stripped. He's had arguments with Mourinho, then it's, oh no, they're all good friends. There's so much going on. It just seems every week is just what's the next chapter in the Pogba show. And you don't know what it's going to be.
Show, to be fair. No, the whole club's so
That's a fair point. Yes, a fair point.
It's Mourinho's fault. I feel for Pogba. I think Mourinho's behind it all, really. See how he was in the World Cup. He was magnificent. But now he's been Mourinho'd.
Love that. So, Brett, any more on the chat?
Yeah, plenty of questions. I'll chuck this one to Dave.
Okay.
Momo wants to know, is it time to ditch Hazard? He's coming up against some very strong defensive sides. Chelsea's fixture's obviously getting quite tough. What are your thoughts?
Well, I haven't had him this season. Hazard
Have you
always
not?
trolls
You haven't owned him?
No, not this season.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I couldn't afford him. Not with Salah. Come on, I'm not made of money. I've got Salah, I've got Robertson, I've got Aguero. Something has to give.
Sure.
I had Pedro early doors. In fact, I think when me and him were on the radio ages ago now, it seems like, that was one of my tips for the early season was Pedro.
I couldn't remember who it was. I was sat there thinking earlier, who did we say? I remember I said Patrick Van Arnold. Oh, dear.
I said Mark Doherty, but I did say Doherty to
yes, you did.
To the West Midlands radio. So
that
was my crowning glory, I think. But anyway, Hazard. He always trolls me, so I don't know if I should answer this question. I'm looking at Chelsea. Their fixtures are pretty strong. I probably would have had him if I could afford him. I went for Barkley simply because he was so cheap. But I don't know. I'm not sure you want him at the moment, do you? Spurs away, and Man City in a couple of 3 weeks' time.
I'm very tempted to switch him to Sterling. I'm not even going to lie right now.
Yeah.
I really am.
It's after that, then you're almost into Christmas.
But it does feel a bit like
he will get rotated.
sideways.
He will get rotated over Christmas, surely.
I think
depends how they do in Europe. I know that he played what? Did he play 60 minutes?
Yes, yeah, and I felt that was more for his fitness. If he was already fit, they probably wouldn't have played him in that. But this is something that every day you get a different thought in your mind about something, and getting rid of Hazard has come across my mind briefly. And I gave it some thought. In my team, I've got the likes of Salah, Hazard, and Sterling. And I know it's not sustainable to have all three long term, really. So there's going to be a point in my season where I'm probably going to have to let one go. And it's like, which one? Once you've got all three, wow, how do you pick which one to get rid of? And so I thought about getting rid of Hazard, but he is the only one that's not in the Champions League. And he's also the one player for Chelsea that he's undroppable. Like, Chelsea rely on him so much. I just don't think I can get rid of him. Especially, granted, he's away to Tottenham next, but let's be fair. Tottenham haven't been that great defensively this season. At least I don't think they have.
They've not been that bad, actually. I think Spurs are going under the radar a bit this season. They seem to be having a bad season.
I think Trippier's injury might make a difference if he's not there, obviously, because he's been brilliant for them, hasn't he?
Aurier yellow card in 2 minutes, yeah.
But even still, I mean, the game after is Fulham at home, and that's one of the fixtures we all look forward to. Granted, Ranieri's there now. Maybe that'll help change Fulham's fortunes. But we've got to have Hazard for that game if you own him. So, anything can change after a game week. So I'm going to wait until after Fulham and kind of see from there how each of my premium players are getting on. But over Christmas, I do see Hazard being rotated the least, providing he's fit. And
I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I think they'll because this is going to be Sarri's first Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
In English football.
Yeah.
And he's going to look at those fixtures and he's going to be aghast. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is relentless. It is relentless.
Games from the 22nd to the 2nd of January. It's just madness.
Oh, I know, but think of all the football we get to watch.
There's like 9 game weeks in 4 weeks' time or something.
Yeah, but Nim, think of all the content we've got to make.
I'm not thinking about that. I might just go on holiday for Christmas.
One thing with Hazard, though, he's a really streaky player, isn't he? When he's good, he's phenomenal. But then you're blank for 3-4 game weeks, which he's doing at the moment, I think. That's normally when I bought him. So he's always a risk, I think, for the money. Always a risk.
The interesting thing about him, what's interesting is there's very little people getting off Hazard until now. We're starting to question it. That's 4 weeks of him underperforming. He's had like 1 point. He blanked. He got an injury. Got 1 point. So there's been 4 game weeks where he's blanked now, and no one's really. It's only now we're thinking to transfer him out. And that's why it's come across my mind, because he has had 4 very low scoring weeks. But at the same time, and his stats are still there for me, so...
Well, for me, the thing is, he didn't play in Game Week 10, and he played 26 minutes in Game Week 11. So I feel like saying 4 game weeks is a bit harsh on him, when only played full 90 minutes in 2 of them. One was against Man United, and the other was against Everton, which was a 0-0 draw, so no one else in that Chelsea side really did anything. And then he still went and got an assist against Crystal Palace for his 26-minute appearance. Yeah. So, for me, this season, my argument would be that the only downturn has been when he has had an injury. Because before then, apart from against West Ham, you're looking at assists and goals. True. Even in 14-minute appearance against Huddersfield, first day of the season, he still got an assist. So, for me, when I'm looking at, I've got Hazard and Salah, it's kind of, I'm looking at Salah and thinking, well, Sterling's pretty much doing the same as Salah. And I think Hazard has just been very consistent apart from that period. Where for me, like, everyone's looking at Sterling as the potential replacement. I'm looking at him as a replacement for Salah. Even though I then go and look at underlying stats for Salah and think, what am I doing? So it's very, very difficult.
On that couch.
Yeah, exactly. Because Salah, I think it's because of his price tag. Hazard's price tag is lower. I feel like I don't expect as much. So when it does come to 2 game weeks where he doesn't do that well, I'm okay with it. Whereas if Salah doesn't score in 1 game week, I'm like, that's it, he's not doing enough. And it's just very, very difficult. And I think, to be honest, if you have 2 of the 3, apart from players like Brett who have all 3, I think you're pretty much going to cover your season. So
have you actually got 3 strikers, Brett? Or you...
Yeah, 3 not very good ones, unfortunately. Nim, I think your mic's on mute, by the way. We can't hear you. There we go.
Just like, why are they ignoring me?
No, you're right. It's just that I had the giggles, so I turned it off because when Brett said very little people are getting off, I just imagined these kind of lemons or leaving Hazard, like running away quickly. So I had the giggles, so I turned it off. But yeah, I was saying sell when Jay said about Salah. Cool. Well, I will let you. I've got a couple more questions, but I'll let you go with some more in the chat there, Brett, if you like.
Okay. I'll chuck this one to Kurt and Nim if you want to contribute as well. The one captain asks, which Spurs players, if any, are you guys looking at to bring in preparation for Game Week 15, which is what a lot of managers are looking at because they have a big fixture swing and lots of very nice fixtures at that point.
Yep.
Yeah, it's tempting. It's one of the options now for Mendy, obviously, if you haven't got any Spurs coverage, but the only big red flag is Chelsea and Arsenal. Trippier has got to be a main shout if you're looking at defenders. I think his delivery, his ball play is phenomenal, and he is probably one of the better players. If he gets on a good run and Spurs can get clean sheets, he can get forwards, he can be on some set plays as well. You never know what you're going to get, and that could be a really good thing. With the attack, I just don't know. You just don't know what to expect, really. It's Spurs have had a very sort of, I suppose, for midfielders, wishy-washy season. With attacks, you have Kane, and that's it. You don't need it to consider anyone else if you can have Spurs coverage. If you've got the money for Kane will score you goals and at a decent rate. Maybe not so much, a bit like Salah, not so much as good as last season, but he's still getting those goals and getting a good amount of them. But with the attackers, I think if you look at all of the attacking midfielders they've all had their hot spells, they've all had their cold spells. So it's just the lottery, really, of who's going to have the next hot spell. I'd probably say Moussa Sissoko. I'd say play it safe with Kane or Trippier for me, but don't go for Sissoko. Don't take that seriously, please.
Yeah, I can't imagine the hate will get
I just bought him.
I literally just did it.
I was looking at Adam Hopcroft's Twitter feed, and he was saying Harry Kane 12.4 mil and is averaging 5.1 points per match. He has scored 6 goals and has fourth best XG of 7.14. From Game Week 15, his fixtures are Southampton, Leicester, Burnley, Everton, Bournemouth, Wolves, Cardiff, Man United, Fulham, Watford, Newcastle, Leicester, and Burnley. So, yeah, I mean, his stats are probably better than we know. As David was saying, Spurs have gone under the radar a little bit this season. My problem is, I don't think I can afford Kane. that is pretty much as simple as that. Obviously, to get him, I would have to sell Aguero. Probably would, looking at it now, would probably be like to have a setup where I've got Sterling and Kane for those fixtures, but I just don't really see how I do that with keeping Salah. So it's just a bit of a money logistics nightmare. Really.
I think in Game Week 15 as well, Salah plays Burnley as well, so it's kind of like we want to get Kane in for maybe that Southampton home game.
Yeah.
But Salah, it's like one of the only ways to fund him, for me anyway, and for probably a lot of people, it's hard to have both, isn't it? And he's got Burnley. Granted, Burnley away, but they are shipping goals.
Isn't it? That's the only thing, isn't it? He's got those Bournemouth as well after that away. Salah is not the same beast away from home, is he?
Yeah, it's fair.
It's the same for me. I think I think if I'm going to get Kane, and I do want him sooner or later, it's going to have to be at the expense of Salah. Which you know, what can you do?
Yeah,
it will kill. But
and then for most of us, we'll be without Liverpool attack, I'm assuming, because not many of us will be able to have Mane as well, if you see what I mean. So then do we go Liverpool-less, who are second in the league at the minute? And if they continue that form, it's just crazy.
It's tough, isn't it? I think looking at how things panning out so far, Man City, they look untouchable, don't they? They're just unbelievable. The amount of goals they're scoring, they're not conceding, they're just playing fantastically. Liverpool, great start, but can they sustain it? I mean, Klopp has history for this. He just tires his players out half the time. He's getting better, I think, in terms of English football, but I'm not so sure about them. But Spurs, I mean, speaking as an Arsenal fan, Spurs.
It's 3 of us now.
Oh, another one.
Yeah, they've had a really mare kind of season, but they're right up there. They're right up there, and funnily enough, if they get knocked out of the Champions League, then they beware them in the league. You know, they
that's a good point. Yeah, we've got to keep an eye on that for sure.
Well, actually, the one I'm keeping a close eye on, based on the first England match that I watched, because I didn't see the second one, would be Ali, because he looks to be slowly kind of like getting over that injury, getting into the swing of things a bit more. So if he can get some regular game time, I'm really he's kind of my under the radar, I'm keeping a bit of an eye on him sort of thing. Although, again, I still have the same issue. He's a lot cheaper than Kane, of course, but then it's trying to squeeze him into that midfield spot, you know?
Yeah.
I don't. I think this season's going to be one on whoever wins it picking the right people at the right time, because I don't think it's going to be as easy as having the best, most consistent players for most of the season, if you see what I mean.
There's much selling as well, isn't it? Not just picking them at the right time, but selling them at the right time.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. The interesting thing with Spurs is I saw someone tweet about it, and a lot of people talk about template, and everyone's got very similar template teams, and I think part of that is because the usual suspects in the midfield of Spurs, Ali, Son, and Eriksen, none of them are really delivering yet, and if one or two of those start banging in some points from game week 15. That's when things might start to change, so that'll really bring up some headaches if those three.
Son's a good point, isn't it, Ashley?
I had Son earlier this season.
Emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, you did, didn't you?
With his dodging the draft and everything, because he won the Asian Cup or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He's due now, isn't he? You'd think he may well come storming back. We shall see.
I mean, I hoped so. Earlier in the season, I brought him in as a bit of a punt. He was 1% owned, and he had Huddersfield, Cardiff. And he played in those games but didn't deliver, and now he's kind of a little bit out of favour. Lamella's playing quite well, Moura's playing well, but like Son is a great option at 8 or so million. If he can start delivering, he's a very affordable route in there. I really like Son as a player.
Definitely.
All right, should we go to another question? Or you got one?
Yep. No, you're good, go on.
Okay. I'll chuck this one to Dave and John. What do you guys think about Newcastle players? Because the fixtures at the moment, they are the top in the next 5 game weeks of the best fixtures, and they are going into these with 7 points, 2 wins and a draw, so hitting a bit of form, and very, very favourable fixtures. To be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go first, Dave. Go for it.
I mean,
hopefully you'll say something nice.
Yeah, don't hold me back. I did a draft thing, and I got Dubravka in simply because of those fixtures.
Nice.
And lo and behold, he's done not very much recently, but they got a clean sheet the other day, didn't they?
That's what you can ask for.
Why would you? Well, yeah, if you want a cheap defender, fair enough. DeAndre Yedlin or something. The 4.4s, 4.5.
Yeah,
fine. But nothing else. I mean, why would you think? Oh yeah, I must get a Newcastle striker.
No level up for Rondon then. 5.7
while I'm about it, I think I just repeatedly punched myself in the face. Rondon scored twice. That's probably his 2 goals for the season, isn't it? I mean, he's got them in 1 game in about 10 minutes.
He's overperforming.
And those 2 goals have also made him the joint top goal scorer for Newcastle this season. So
yeah, there you go.
Is that true?
Wow.
It's him, and he scored 2. Joselu scored 2, and then everyone else who scored has scored 1.
Look, I'll tell you what, guys. What I'll do is I'll make a video saying he's a trap and not to bring him in. And then Rondon will start scoring loads.
He'll pile him in. Everyone get on the trend.
I've considered him personally. I have considered Rondon. That might sound a bit crazy, but
that's because you've got all those midfielders, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, Dave. Yeah, it's my own fault.
Well, it could be the next Michu. It could be the next Michu, as always say.
Yeah. It's not even the old Rondon. That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, I'm Newcastle. Yeah, maybe a defender, but.
Kennedy,
they're not going to score more than 1 or 2 a game tops. So,
sorry, I was just saying Kennedy possibly as a cheap midfielder.
Yeah, 4.9. In this stage where we're looking to build squads, 15-man squads to rotate. 4.9 million for Kennedy. It's still a bargain.
Yeah, but it's Newcastle.
But it's Newcastle.
The place. I always look outside, and it's toxic up there at the moment. Everybody hates Ashley, with good reason, and you just know they have one bad game, and the whole atmosphere goes flat again, and the players start getting antsy. It's just not. I don't know. You look for reliability, and I can't see much past the defence really. At a push.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, we have another there.
Yeah, I'll chuck this one to you, Nim. You've had quite a lot of experience with Wolves players this season. So Marcus Logan wants to know. He says he's liking the look of Wolves' next two fixtures. So they play Huddersfield and Cardiff in the next two. He wants to discuss top targets for Wolves other than the obvious Doherty and Jimenez. Is there any others other than those two that you would consider?
Just make the question
stay
difficult.
away from Patricio. In fact, Brett, Jay, can you make a video, please? Because he seems to have gone missing the last 4 game weeks. I think it's very difficult to say if there's any others. I mean, I went for who was it I had very early on? Was it Neves? I think I went for in midfield, and he was a complete disappointment. And Jota, I think. Yeah. I mean, they all have brilliant potential, and pre-season I was very excited to see how they were gonna pan out. But I think we're so far into the season now. I think we can say we've seen the cream rise to the top, if you see what I mean. So I think the assets are pretty much the ones that have been mentioned already. I had Jimenez, and like David, I sold him just before he hauled. So I did pass him back for Wilson, who I had before him, so I didn't feel too bad about that. But Jimenez, Doherty, Bennett's the kind of cheap one that just kind of rumbles along in defence, and you can just kind of leave him there on your bench, and he seems to still be playing, even though people said he'd likely get rotated and things like that. So you could, if you want a wild card, you could, I guess, get him. It just depends on.
That's what I did.
Yeah. There you go.
My wild card, because he's so bloody cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Just get him, sit him on your bench. He's playing each week, and if you really feel like Wolves are going to smash it, like the next two they've got, and you want to risk triple defence or double defence, now would be the time. But I wouldn't really necessarily advocate that, even though I do have double Wolves defence. I might give it a go. I'll see.
I think I will be. I mean, sorry, Dave, just quickly. Huddersfield at home in the next fixture, and Huddersfield away from home have only scored 3 goals, I think.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, I will be.
So, granted, Huddersfield are going into this with a bit more confidence. They've improved the last 2 game weeks, I think it is. But I've either got Trent Alexander-Arnold away to Watford. Watford very impressive at home so far, or I've got Doherty already, so hopefully he's fit, and then the option to play Bennett as a double up. And I think if there's any time to double up, that's a good fixture. And Wolves, they're in bad form. They've lost 3 and drawn 1 in the last 4. But impressive against Spurs, impressive against Arsenal. I still think with these fixtures now, I'm very likely going to double up on defence. What were you going to say, Dave?
No, I was just going to tell him to triple up. I think I'm really
Yeah.
That was all.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I can say about that question. If you want to move on
I can just add a little bit. I'm not suggesting by any means to go for these two.
Have you found somebody? Have you found somebody's secret?
Well, we previously had a question about Newcastle assets. Ruben Neves at 5 million. Has had 14 attempts on goal. Kennedy's had 15 in the last 4 game weeks. Of course, from inside the box, we all know Ruben Neves doesn't get inside the box. But he's had 1 shot from inside the box, whereas Kennedy's had 5. But then, as far as shots on target, Ruben Neves has had more shots on target than Kennedy, 3-2. So despite the fact that his chances are coming from distance, you could, if you need a cheap midfielder, go Ruben Neves, and then you have Helder Costa.
Kennedy.
At 4.9 million as well. 9 attempts on goal in the last 4, 6 from inside the box. No goals, but 4.9 million. He's nice and cheap, and he has played in all 4 of the last games. So if you wanted to take a punt and needed someone cheap, maybe you could look at them. But by all means, was exactly what Nim said. The cream has risen to the top. Raul Jimenez, Doherty look like the 2 options in that side. If I was going to look at anyone else, it would have been Johnny, but he looks like he's injured.
Yeah, very true.
That's why I didn't mention
He's gone
him.
for a while, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We'll have one more then, Brett, and then we'll finish up with the polls and bits and pieces.
Cool. So this one's from FPL Center at the other YouTube channel. Hey man, go and check him out after this. He wants to know, with Mendy being out injured, do we think Sane could become a maybe cheaper alternative to Sterling? I think he's 9.3 million, Sane. He's returned in every game he started, and the idea is that Pep likes him to offer width if Mendy doesn't play. What do you think on that, Kurt?
It's interesting. I've seen it said quite a bit that I think it was I can't remember early on in the season when Mendy got injured. I think he definitely got injured previously, hasn't he?
Yes,
I remember that.
Yeah.
It was all the rave about Sane now is going to be out wide and he's a really good asset, and Pep only likes one of them to play together. He doesn't like the 2 of them to play together, so that was why Sane was benched and yada yada yada. I think it's definitely something to look into, because like you say, his stats speak for themselves. I don't look too much into underlying stats. If you're in the right place and right time, which a lot of Man City is, you can get returns. And if he's bombing down and crossing the ball in, you've got Aguero in there. If he gets a touch on it towards goal, it's most likely going to go in. He's one of the most potent finishers in the Premier League, if not the world. Maybe a little bit too much in saying that. Raheem Sterling is also bombing in there. You've got players left, right and centre. When Man City go forward, it's definitely something to think about. And if the injury does keep Mendy out for a couple of months, maybe the Christmas period with the Pep rotation could, maybe hinder him a bit. But you never know. We've got a month until the fixtures really start ramping up. So, it might be worth looking into him a bit more and maybe considering him. But if you've got a stacked midfield, which I know I have, I know you have especially, does he find a place in there is the big question, because there seems to be so much value in midfielders. Can he find a spot in your team? I think is the following up question I'd have.
Plus, I think possibly at the moment I prefer David Silva.
He's one that not really many people considered at the start of the season. With him,
my mum's had him all season, and he's just
oh no,
struggling along for mum nicely, Yeah.
Bernardo Silva.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's Bernardo as well. I had him at the start. Oh, don't.
It's been fantastic.
He's
cheap comparatively, and Pep loves him this season so far.
Yeah,
I cannot not see him. I cannot not see him in his Y fronts, though. He posted, I think Benjamin Mendy posted a picture of him in his Y fronts on Instagram, and I can't not see him.
That's fancy football for you.
Yeah. And on that note, we have had our random question of the week. So thanks to Mo again. And he wants to know from all of us, what are our favourite crisps? Now, he doesn't specify whether that's flavouring or type. So feel free to answer this exactly how you feel fit. And so, Jay, I'll come to you first.
Oh, great. I mean, do nachos count? Because then I get to get some cheese, some meat, some jalapenos, some sour cream. So I'm getting a whole meal. So I thought nachos would be my choice.
Not sure.
Easy to dip as well.
Keep it to like a packet. Keep it to like a packet.
It's a corn chip, isn't it? It's a corn chip.
Oh. It's not a tortilla crisp.
Tortilla.
Well, I'm half Brazilian, near to Mexico. I don't play by these English rules.
Brett, how about you?
I'm gonna probably get slated so much for this. It's a really boring answer. I would just have to say original hula hoops, to be honest.
I like a hula hoop.
I've always been quite prone to a hula hoop sandwich.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm quite a plain kind of guy. I like stuff plain, So original hula hoops is the one for me.
Have you put them all over your fingers though as well, though?
Of course, mate.
Now we
do that during the stream.
Now we found out why he's so kind of hooligan with his FPL team, because he's he's so good the rest of the time. So Kurt, what about you?
I'm a decent crisp fan, but I think one flavour and type takes it all up for me, and it's salt and vinegar discos. Massive fan of
one
them.
of my faves.
Massive fan of them. If you get a nice
Proper
packet
retro.
with a load of flavouring, I think, proper
Nice.
crisps.
And
Don't get many
Dave?
in them, but a load of crisps.
No, yeah, you get robbed with discos and squares as well. Absolutely
Yeah,
robbed.
definitely. Oh yeah, squares. Yeah, they're good. David, you?
Yeah, well, salt and vinegar Walker's crisps and skips. I remember the skips. As a kid, that bit in the middle, it just blew your tongue away. And I'm sure they've taken some of the flavour out these days. Like they make everything smaller. They've made them blander. Or it's the fact that I can't taste anymore, but one of the two. But yeah, skips for me, for the comedy snack anyway. Skips, not Monster Munch though, as my wife said. They they destroy you. They hurt.
Monster Munch
They're
are
sharp.
awesome.
Pickled onion.
Yeah, they're lovely,
Monster
but
Munch.
they're sharp.
Tommy Gunn loves them as well.
Yeah, it got. Oh, I love myself some pickled onion Monster Munch. But I think there were some posh ones I said earlier from Max Spencer.
Yeah,
I
that's
just remembered.
It's gonna go Waitrose. Don't eat these normal crisps.
I just remembered there are some from Harrods that I
Who eats discos? Get your crisps from the proper place.
I quite like sweet chili sensations. They're probably.
What about those ones from Marks and Spencer's though?
Yeah,
Coriander
the lime and coriander ones. Yeah, they're good. If you're going a bit more upmarket with your hummus, then they're the ones to go for. Cool. Okay. I have one more question before we pass to Jay in the polls. And David, I want to know, why on earth did you put Benteke on the front of your?
I had nothing to do with the cover. I can draw a stick man. I can draw those M's that make a bird. Yeah, that's all I can draw. So don't blame me. I had no say over the cover. People were pointing out, I think, that let's have a look at it again. Somebody was saying that one of the players wasn't even playing in Gameweek 17 or something last year. I love it. I think it's a great cover. The design is fantastic.
Yeah,
I think so too. I think it looks awesome. Was it an FPL player that designed it, or did he have no idea what FPL? Okay.
It's done by them. They have their in-house designers.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. It really does.
It does. And everybody should buy it.
Yeah.
Link in the
because
description.
I'm in it.
Yeah, buy another one. If you've got one, buy another one.
Yeah. It'd be a great Christmas present. Great Christmas present. Okay, we'll pass to Jay then for the polls. And thank you very much for everyone for joining the stream. Please don't forget to obviously pop us a subscribe if you've been enjoying this. As Jay said, we're very, very close to the 1,000, and we do have 1,000 followers on Twitter now, so it'd be great to kind of match up the two. Thank you very much to David for joining us. I've been trying to get him on since the beginning of the season, and he's a very busy man. Very, very busy man.
Yeah, I've got Fallout 76 to play, yeah.
So thank you to you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Jay, if you'd like to tell us how people have voted in the polls, that'd be great.
Okay, so in the polls, and this is the bit where they all have to sit here and listen to me talk, so I love this bit. In the polls, we did cover some of the questions that were asked of us. The first poll question was a Mendy replacement. I put in there just because I was interested to see not Alonso or Robertson. So we had as options Digne, Doherty, Laporte and Rudiger. Rudiger got none, so I obviously put that there and no one was interested in that choice at all. The winner of the poll was Doherty. I'm assuming a lot of people have him, so coming second was Laporte, which is a nice, easy swap. Digne only getting 12% of the vote compared to Doherty's 43% and Laporte's 37%. 6% did go for other, so there are obviously some other options out there that people are looking at. We have the captain question, of course, who's captain for Game Week 13. We have 52% going for Mohamed Salah, while 23% going for Aguero, and also 23% going for Richarlison as a potential differential compared to probably outside of the Twitter community. I'm assuming all the really hardcore FPL players are considering Richarlison, but I think outside of those, probably not many looking at him as a captain option. And then, is Pogba overlooked because of Martial, which was one of the questions. The options we had were yes, because of Martial, he's being overlooked. Yes, he's being overlooked because of other players in the league. No, he's not been overlooked. Martial is just a better option. And no, he's not a consideration at all. And the winner of that poll was no, Pogba is not a consideration at all at 47%, with 23% on both yes because of Martial, and no, Martial is just better. So those are the poll answers. Thank you so much for answering those. And with all that being said, thank you so much for joining the stream. If you do want to check out the David's book, Wasting Your Wildcard, link is in the description. It will also be in the description for the replay, which you can check out. And hopefully, because we've done this on Tuesday, I will make sure my lazy bottom does actually edit some stream clips for you, so you can watch some of this without having to watch the whole stream, if that is what you'd like to do. So thank you, David, for joining us. Thank you, of course, for the rest of the Wildcats as well. And make sure to stay tuned to our Twitter account at FPL WildCats to find out when we're next going live. See you later.